guys, welcome back. And you have just joined a momentous event. This is the first Facebook Live since I've gotten the Facebook group back. And if you guys don't know, I'm Andrew Kroeze. I'm the owner of Masters of Fate. I used to own Tribe of Buyers before I sold it. I sold this Facebook group alongside of it. And I just had a conversation with Michael Chu, who's amazing, who bought my business. And a lot of people in here are coaches, agency owners, and looking to build their lives around those businesses. He had a lot of fitness professionals, so he was more focused on moving his attention somewhere else. So we are going to restart this group together, and I have a banger one here for you today with Armin. Both of us have gone from burnout to breakthrough, and I'm seeing a lot of people are joining. So we got 4 people on here right now. Would love to see you. Hashtag value down below if you get any value out of this. And hit that heart button, hit that like button. If you get any value, the more people we can reach, more people we can help. And yeah, I just want to go super deep with you, Armin. Number 1, who are you? Number 2, what is your story around burnout to breakthrough?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me here. And for everyone else in this awesome community, you guys better be ready for a year full of value from Andrew. I got to spend 2 weeks with him in San Miguel, and just absolutely life-changing. Like the work we did on ourselves, inner work, going deep into the whys, the motivations, the values, the vision. And so he's like transformed. And I'm sure before it was really valuable, but now it'll be like second to none. So my background, I own highticketcoaching.com. And for 3 years, I ran a program where we're helping people get started in the online space, craft their offers, viral offer, and do organic marketing. I did it for 3 years, and I sold a pretty high ticket offer. I was one of the most expensive compared to everyone else selling. It was 10 grand. And then I had a back end, and we had this really large company. We made millions of dollars. And somewhere along the line, it started to really feel like really heavy. I think in the beginning, when I started, the vision was to be the first millionaire in my family. I thought, no one's ever done that. I'm going to prove. I'm a student of Think and Grow Rich. I want to prove you use your mind. You really could achieve something. But after I made the million and I got like that award, everything after that became about like money and like more numbers. And it was all vanity in a sense. And I didn't know it. Like at the time, you still have a good heart. You want to help people, but your ego starts to really engulf itself. It attach itself to the identity of being something. And I think over the next 2 years was like it was the hardest years of my life, even though I made a lot of money. So now we shut down those programs last year, and I'm kind of starting from scratch. We're building something different. And I think I learned so much in burning out myself in that model. And I think me and you could share some cool things for everyone else here.
Yeah, I think you hit on a super powerful point, because if you don't go through it, you can't really teach somebody to not go through it. What I'm trying to say here is after I went through burnout and I sold the business, I was reading Power versus Force by David Hawkins. Really good book. And there's one chapter in there about honor versus pride. And there was some point along my journey where the creation energy started to come from pride more from honor. And there was some switch that just happened through that process where I was like, just so tapped into identity. This is me, instead of being creative and innovative. That was the downfall when my energy switched from honor to pride. Because initially growing this group, initially launching the programs, all of that stuff, that lit me the fuck up. And then at one point, it just didn't, So, yeah, I think identifying our values is super important, and we can get into that. That's been super helpful for me to stay in more of that honor creation energy. And then doing my energy rituals, like we were hopping in cold plunges every single day.
Every day. It was amazing.
Yeah. Or I was like, how long are we in here? And you're like, I put the timer on for 10 minutes. And like those two things have been really helpful to stay in my creation energy, my honor energy, instead of moving into pride and into ego as the downfall, as the burnout. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a way to say it is like you start with working out of your gut. Like there's intuition driving you. There's desire driving you. It's all that beautiful energy in like the sacral area. And I think when it gets into your head, you're just like, you're in your head. It's all ego and it's all illusion. And you like the thing that I feel like breaks a person out of poverty is a spiritual force, a creative. It's like you almost have this delusional faith that you can do something you've never done. That's a very creative part of the mind. That's a creative force. But then you achieve things, and your logical mind and your fears and your insecurities, like it starts to try to hug around and be like, see, that was me. I did that. And
Mhm.
instead of knowing, like when you were starting out, like remember, for anyone watching this and they built something big, like go back to the day you started. You weren't this big shot, whatever you are now. You were just like a kid probably, or like just a nobody. And you're like, I believe in myself. Like it was a lot of creative energy, just faith and visualizing it and like believing it and working on it. And then we get there and our ego goes, no, 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 I did this. See, we're so good. And we stop actually having that kind of sincere purpose, that sincere drive to create something great. I remember in the beginning, Andrew, just like you, I would dedicate an entire weekend in like 30 hours straight recording videos because I'm like, I want to build the greatest course ever. Like that drive in me, it went away over time. It's kind of still, no, I came back a bit with this new stuff, but it went away for a while. Like your drive to like do certain things because the why's gone, the what is not as meaningful anymore. So you just do less. And I think that's when you first start signs of burnout. It's like the meaning behind the work you do is starting to diminish.
Mhm. Agreed, man. And it's this point that we hit where we catch momentum. And then we keep riding that momentum, riding that momentum. And then at some point, if we don't turn it, like turn our brain off, it can switch from momentum to burnout. And it's super important to ride that wave of momentum, but also not getting lost in that ego,
Yeah.
and not listening to our body and to our energy and all of that.
It's
Uh,
interesting because like people will sleep. Like no one thinks it's out of the ordinary or wild to sleep so you can get rest after a day. But nobody thinks about like resting the mind, resting your thoughts, which is like sleeping for the mind, which is meditation, right? It's like
mm,
nobody thinks about that. Nobody second thinks about eating food when you're starving or your body needs nutrients. Nobody thinks about like it's an odd thing to eat food in the mind, learn, grow, like work with people, get coaching. And I think of that, I'm like, that needs to become a new thing. Like there is a second person living inside you. It's not just the person in the mirror, which requires sleep and food. There's also a spiritual person inside you. There's the spirit of you, your soul. And that thing also requires rest and requires food, but it's different for the mind. I think that's the kind of work you're doing now, which is really beautiful. So I think it's important.
yeah, that's a big part of it. I came by the quote like 2 years ago, and Eli Wild says it all the time. Super powerful quote. It's the space between the notes that make the music. And Eli always says it in terms of communicating, having that cadence and creating music out of what you're saying. But I was also thinking about it, and it's the same thing with the mind. Um, when our mind is constantly running, going, it just sounds like a bunch of plates being dropped on the floor. There's
Yeah.
no music made out of it. And when we can stop those thoughts, at least just for a little bit, from like 20 minutes into a workout, and those thoughts just stop, or 12 minutes into a breathwork session, or meditating for 12 minutes, like it creates more music and more flow out of our lives. That's been my experience from implementing energy rituals, or going into our cold plunge where you're like, holy shit, this is so painful, this hurts so bad, but I'm so in the moment, I'm not thinking,
I
uh,
agree.
yeah, I think that's important to get across. There's so many more things I can bring up around this, but what are your thoughts?
Space within the notes. It's beautiful. It's the
Hmm.
silence in between the thoughts. I would say that's where you are too.
Hmm.
There is music playing in the mind. It's just not your instruments, but you can turn into your instruments.
Hmm.
The practice of disassociating with the thoughts, I think that's how you play music. You said
Hmm.
once like peace is power and power. You said I always mix this up, but peace comes from power and power comes from presence.
Yeah, it's along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Or power comes from peace and peace comes from presence. Regardless, the moral of the story is when you practice being in the now, which is the silence, you
Hmm.
actually create a peaceful mind. And my mentor taught me A peaceful mind is the most productive of mind. Some people think stressful mind is the most productive, the busiest mind, person who's the most intense or passionate. No, it's the most peaceful mind. It's the person who has no fear in their mind, no doubt, no hesitation, no procrastination, no indecision, no second guesses, no negativity. It's just a peaceful mind, very productive. You just work. Like I built this last platform, HCU, and I spent 126 hours nonstop screen time, like 126 hours. 30 or 40 of those hours were 2 back-to-back all-nighters. I didn't feel it. I was so in flow. My mind was so peaceful because I knew exactly what I wanted to create. I knew the what, I knew the how, I knew the why, and I just flew with it. And I look at it, I'm like, imagine you always work that way. There's no burnout because you're working out of joy. It's not hard work, it's joyful work. Something else Eli says is there's hard work, there's smart work, and then there's frameworks. And I think there are frameworks to how to manage yourself so you can actually create flow, like effortless flow. And when you actually get into flow state, you multiply your output without even trying. You accomplish far more exponential growth with effortless work because it doesn't feel like effort. It feels like you're having fun. Like nobody thinks I worked so hard binge watching that show on Netflix. You don't think that, right? You go, bro, that was so great. Fuck, so much time flew by. You want your work to feel like you just binge watch a Netflix series. That's when you know you're in flow.
100%. And the easiest way to get into flow is by having a big vision. Like your vision became more clear. And the biological component behind that is we release more dopamine naturally. Like dopamine is associated with focus and motivation. When we have a big vision for our life, then we have more focus and motivation because dopamine is the pursuit of pleasure molecule. And when we ask ourselves, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? And we create a vision in our head around that thing, a motion picture. How do we feel? What do we see? What do we smell? What do we taste? Then we release more dopamine naturally in our body. But our brain is so wired for fear that our amygdala, the fear center of our brain, just grows. When we're in a fear state, cortisol is coursing through our body. Then our amygdala starts growing in synaptic connections, and it shuts off part of the prefrontal cortex, which regulates our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So what's the easiest way to get into a flow state? It's having a big vision, reducing the cortisol response of worry, stress, fear, all of those thoughts, and putting space between our thoughts so we can envision a bigger life for ourselves. Easiest way to get into flow state.
Yeah, it's like one definite chief aim, Napoleon calls it, is just having a desire. And when desire becomes burning, it lights up something inside you. And you know what's crazy too? Cortisol, stress hormone, shuts down the immune system, shuts out your creative mind because all you're thinking about is survival. And I was talking about this with some a group today on Zoom. Someone like the logical, rational mind doesn't make you rich. It might save you money. It might help you with self-discipline. It might keep you on track with things, but it doesn't make you rich. The creative mind does. And so when whatever gets in the way of your creative thinking, which comes up with those ideas or receives those nudges, then you're always like, that's what you got to get out of the way. Because the thing that really makes you like jump out of poverty, jump out of a low is a beautiful idea, a spark, an inspiration. Those are the long-lasting energy sources. So learning like what you teach, Andrew, like learning how to operate out of the flow and in cohort, like cohesiveness with something you want in life, that's like, that activates the creative mind. I think when someone starts working joyfully, they really get those ideas that actually does change the game. And ideas make you rich. Execution is the default, but ideas make you rich. You could also execute hard in a shitty idea and still not get anywhere. But ideas, you may not even execute. You might just bring together the people that can execute, and it's your idea. And a great example of this is like true businessmen. They'll like connect dots. Like one person's a vendor, one person's a manufacturer, the other one's a distributor, and like we'll just coordinate it all. Millions of dollars are made, and they make their cut. True businessmen do that. I look at that as like they have the right thinking. Like the highest paid people in the world are the ones who can think. You can really use the mind.
100%, dude. And we actually got our first comment in the new group. Hold on, let me find his name. There we go, Jeremy. Let's go, dude. Jeremy's my favorite right now. He says you're talking about spiritual principles here, shutting off the internal dialogue and returning to rest as awareness, 100%. And self-mastery is a spiritual journey, and spiritual journey is self-mastery. It's pretty cool to see all of the concepts around self-mastery and peak performance and all of that stuff and how they associate with ancient religions and all that.
Agreed.
Yeah, you brought up, what was the last thing that you said? You brought up something super important.
The ideas that make you rich through the creative mind.
100%. And there's one of my favorite quotes, which comes from the book The Alchemist, is don't ignore the omens. That the omens are always around, the things to listen to, the signs. And our running mind causes us to ignore those. I was ignoring so many omens when I was burning out. And I was like, no, I can force my way through this. No, I'm fucking fine. And then it wasn't until I finally rested and I started listening to those nudges, to those omens of, oh, this is my intuition speaking to me, of, oh, I want to travel to Morocco. This is calling me right now. I went to an event in Morocco and it was the most incredible event with, it's called Experience House, went with 25 entrepreneurs and artists. It was one of the most transformational experiences. I didn't even look at the landing page. I didn't know it was about. My friend invited me, but everything in my body said, yes, go to this. And the other thing was thinking about what I wanted to build next. And I remember walking around in San Diego near the beaches and just telling my story over and over and over. I was like, what's the biggest impact that I can make in this world? Like, okay, I've been a coach. I've been a really good coach and successful coach. And what are the elements that has made my life so fulfilling and successful? The big thing started with me taking radical responsibility when I was 24 years old. I read the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Final two lines, I master my fate, I'm kept my soul. That belief changed my life, where I set a goal to lose 20 pounds and to quit drinking. And I was like, I think that's one of the biggest things I can contribute to this world, helping more people take radical responsibility for their lives and building out systems, not just around business, but also around self-mastery and the human OS and that sort of stuff from everything that I was learning. And it just came from listening to those omens, listening to the heart, telling my story over and over and over and figuring out what was my unique differentiator. So yeah, don't ignore the omens.
It's funny you said something too. It's like you were ignoring the omens, and think about it, like those signs, right? Like there's a voice telling you. I want to, for anyone watching this, like I want to speak on behalf of all the people that do that and say it's not your fault. Because when you're really going through it, you don't know their omens. Like if I'm going back to like my truth, I was always split, man. Like I was working hard and I was split between two ideas. Is this a test? Or is this a sign? And I think that's the one thing that probably entrepreneurs stay confused about. And you can't blame them, man. How can you really know? Like when you're going through a hard time in your business, all of us, we go through the same shit. We contemplate whether we should quit or not. Like, hey, maybe sell it off, maybe do this, maybe leave, maybe this. Because when we're faced with like adversities or challenges or friction, like survival, we want to run. Probably it's why people like relationships don't last. Like commitment is scary because when it's time to stay committed, that's when it actually takes commitment muscles. So it was a lot of times where I saw signs where maybe I could have been doing something bigger, doing something different, but I had no idea. There's no clarity. And I think it's unfair to say anyone can know, like, oh, you shouldn't have. I don't think you know. Like when you're in it, it doesn't feel like a sign. It feels like temptations half the time. Like, hey, I should keep going. Like all the guys making more money than me in business, they went through this part. And so you convince yourself, no, this is just a test. But then you go back in the signs and go, maybe it's a calling. Like I shouldn't be in this business. Maybe. And so like, I think it kind of drives you nuts. That's at least my experience for 2 fucking years. 2 years. I kept making more and more money and I kept getting into a different adversity, back to back to back to back issues, people coming, people leaving, sales going up, sales going down, things not working, my anger, my personal stuff. And the entire time, every time an adversity came up, I obviously I thought like, maybe I'm not meant for this. Like, I don't know, maybe, who knows? But the other half of me goes, no, I'm going to keep going. And I think you reach a point when you do it long enough, and I think it's maturity in the spiritual process, where you really have time and time again tested to keep going. And then you really I think it's like a long time in where you really look back and go, no, I think it's not a test. Like everything in my body saying go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
I reached that point. I know you reached that point, which is like, yeah, I think I'm done trying. I was talking to my mentor the other day, Sonny, and he runs a fairly large company, owns quite the majority market share in all of Canada for his company and his industry. And he's like, yeah, this is actually cool. You would like this. He's like, we try to reach out. We try to expand to the US market. We did an entire thing where we projected all the problems we could face and we figured out how we'd fix it. He's like, then we went and we got our ass smoked because something happened that we didn't expect. The cost of acquisition was 20 times greater than what we could afford to pay. 20 times. Like, what the hell? We didn't expect getting a new customer will cost us 20 times more than the average lead. And he went and he realized that the competitors he's dealing with, they all get funding. And so they're like, they have 5 years of runway to get billions of dollars to just buy at a higher cost to take guys like me out. He's like, So the team sat there and they're like, what are you going to do? He's the CEO. And he told me, he's like, Armin, for the first time I looked at it and I thought, I don't think I want to fucking do it. Like, could I really overcome the market? Yeah, I could probably do all this work to grow the business and compete. I don't want to. I don't actually think I want to. And he was telling me, he's like, there is times when you just don't feel like it, and that's okay. And I'm not talking about doing the work you should do when you're starting out, actually going, putting in the work. I'm talking about when you've actually accomplished, you've put in the work, you've achieved it a lot, and you look back and you go, do I keep wanting to exert energy on this? And it takes a serious heightened level of self-awareness to really ask yourself, do you want to keep being the way you're being? Being that guy. And he's like, I don't think I want to be that guy anymore. I don't know if I want to do this 5 years from now. I don't know if I want to go and compete. I'm pretty happy where we're at. That seems like such a curse word in entrepreneurship, being happy where you're at, not wanting to grow, which is pretty funny. But I think that's where the real conversation is, man. It's why what you do now is so important. Real conversation is, says who? You're doing all this shit, putting all this work. You're trying to get this, but says who that it needs to be done? I need to do this, the upper limit problem. I need to achieve X in order for me to be Y. I can't be this unless I do this first. That's a real phenomenon, bro. It's says who? Yeah. And most of the time we're driven by these stories we tell ourselves that we just told ourselves really well. And because we're entrepreneurs and we sell people, we know how to sell well. So we sell ourselves those stories.
Yeah. And the thing with Sonny is he's super tapped in. He's super tapped into his body. He's super tapped into his heart. So I think the perfect word that you brought up was awareness. He's more aware than other people. And when I was going through it and I was confusing signs with challenges and challenges with signs, it was because I was living in my head and I wasn't aware. And if I could go back and tell myself anything, I would say, get out of your head and into your heart. And do you know how to do that? You put space between your thoughts. You feel into your body. You take time to feel into the present moment. Meditation, breath work, cold showers, exercise. Just don't think and feel into it. So when we can do that, decisions become a hell of a lot easier when we can feel into that intuition and feel into the heart. And I still go through fluctuations where I'm really fucking tapped into the heart and then, oh shit, I'm back up in my head. But the difference now is I know how to get back into my heart with the energy rituals. When in Tribe of Buyers, I was just going so fast that I just lived in my head, I think that's the key. Yeah. Is not falling off the horse. We'll fall off the horse, but how quickly do we get back on? And I'm sure Sonny falls off the horse, but he knows how to get back on,
Yeah, 100%. He has his own coach. Funny enough, he has someone he goes to and opens up. I think everyone needs to have a go-to person you trust, and I think mentorship and coaching. Mentorship, they teach you how to think. Coaching, they help you get through things, grow. I think you need both. More importantly, though, I think we all have the capacity inside of ourselves to have so much awareness that we can see ourselves through things. But I think that takes a lot of work. It might be easier to say when I've spent the last like 7, 8 years of my life obsessed with understanding myself. So it's good though.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah. The one book that really helped me with getting into the heart, following the nudges, uh, was Michael Singer's the
Untethered Soul. Oh,
Surrender.
the Surrender Experiment. Oh, so
Yeah.
good.
And after reading that, it was like November of 2021. I was in Morocco. The person who recommended it to me, Jason Brown, who is a CSO of a couple billion-dollar unicorns out in Silicon Valley. He was going through his spiritual shit. Like he had all of the like spiritual wardrobe on, and he was just like, dude, follow the nudges. So I read that book, and I was doing a lot of meditation, 30, 45 minutes a day. And I was in such a hyper flow state and hyper present from just the whole day. I was just breathing in peace and then breathing out nudges. And I allowed my heart to take me wherever I wanted to. And I went on the craziest experiences, like partying in the middle of the Sahara Desert with local Moroccan people, where we just followed a nudge to walk through the desert because we heard music and we stumbled across this big Moroccan party, which was sweet. And then crazy experiences in Costa Rica as well. Just the most serendipitous and synchronous moments I've ever had in my life. But yeah, that book is really good. Just tapping into the moment, tapping into the heart. So,
that's so good. I finished reading that too a month ago actually on my way back from San Miguel. I finished it. And that book, if it did one thing, it convinced me of one philosophy, which is you can not only achieve what you want, but far more than what you want by listening and surrendering to what presents itself to you. It's actually funny because this year I've dedicated my practice, my spiritual practice, to just that. And this could be helpful for everyone in terms of confusion. I had one misunderstanding. I'm like, okay, well, if I want to surrender, I'm in business, right? Like I'm in charge of making decisions, which means I literally have to control what happens. It's like, this is what I thought. I'm like, okay, I'm in business. I have to decide like what we do, who's doing what, like, right? So I'm like, how do I surrender? Like, do I wake up and just go, whatever you guys want to do today, do? I'm like, no, that's not, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm like, how do you surrender? And I brought this to my coach. I brought it to Sonny. I'm like, Sonny, I need clarity on one thing. I want to live a life of surrender. Like, I think Michael Singer, he convinced me. And I realized that God probably has far more smarter plans than I could ever create. And I want to see what's in store for me. And I just don't know how to do it being in a seat of power. Like I have to make decisions. So he goes, yeah, Armin, he's like, I'll give you an example. I'm going to give you an example. I don't know if you've heard this yet. You're going to love it, man. This is a huge breakthrough for me. He's like, have you ever prepared for a talk, like a presentation? I'm like, yeah, like webinars, on stage, challenges, whatever. He's like, yeah. He's like, and we usually prepare like the presentation, right? Like you make your slides, your notes, whatever. You know what you're going to talk about. I'm like, yeah, for sure. He's like, but then have you ever gone on stage and you start that presentation and then something takes over? Like you get inspired and you go off script and you just start saying stuff. I'm like, hell yeah, all the time. He goes, that's exactly what it means to surrender. I'm like, oh, I'm like, now I get it. I got that analogy. So I'm like, you're telling me that as an entrepreneur, as a leader, I have to still make the presentation. I got to make the business plan. Got to know the vision. Got to set my goals. Got to set my targets. Got to know what has to be done. Got to help my team as much as I can. Make sure all the instructions are clear. Put in the work. Deposit the work, the effort. Like build the product. Help the people. But when that thing comes and takes me over, I surrender to it. In the middle of the flow, in the middle of the work, in the middle of the week, in the middle of a meeting, whatever it is. He goes, yeah. I'm like, now I get it. So I've been practicing that. He taught me that like 3 weeks ago. That, and every day I started to spend 30 minutes inside myself and creating a very clear mental picture of what I want to become, what I want to achieve. So setting the what I want. Yeah. And it's creating some spooky results, man. It is pretty crazy. People out of nowhere, from years ago, calling me, wanting to do business with me, wanting to like being the exact strategic partner I'm looking for right now. And I never thought it'd be them. And the weirdest thing, like I remember, I'm gonna tell you this. I remember going to an event a long time ago and watching this person on stage, and I was at some random event. I'm like, this is the worst speaker I've ever heard in my life. Like, this is the most boring thing ever. I think I even got up and walked out. And I would never think that fast forward to like now, I'd probably be like doing business with this person. I'm like, holy shit. But like I met them out of nowhere and then our paths crossed. Because I'm aligning to myself, I'm not seeing things through judgment anymore. I'm seeing things as endless possibilities. So like there's all these things happening where I'm like, whoa, I never expected that. And they're moving faster than I can work. And that's what it means when you're really like in that tapped in. So for anyone watching this, like, how do you surrender? Like, how do you do this spiritual shit that, you know, me and Andrew are talking about? It's not that you let go of the wheel and you just start to see what happens. That's called carelessness. That's not spirit. It's about you understanding that 100% of the work is not yours. 50% of the work is what you deposit, is what you put in, the input. The other 50% of the work is God's or the universe's job, which is the output. So we don't control the output, we control the input. And that's all I've been doing, and it's been working miraculously. And frankly, it's far more peaceful.
Oh,
not worried about what happens.
100%. I think for the first 29 years of my life, I was going through life like this. And then when I went on my spiritual journey, it just kind of could open up. I could feel all of that. And to your point, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about the dichotomy of surrender and intention. Intention being the masculine, surrender being the feminine. And that's really true balance. I think all of us are seeking balance within ourselves, balance in life. It's the ability to tap into the masculine, into intention, into getting shit done, and being able to tap into the feminine, the surrender, the let go, and being able to identify the moment of this is my moment up on stage to let go, to surrender, to flow. And this is my time to tap into the masculine, to intend, to plan, to do. And the better we get, from my experience, the better we get at tapping into surrender when it's time to surrender, and tapping into the masculine, into intention when it's the time to take control, take the reins, the more balanced and whole our life becomes.
Powerful.
I think we'll leave it there, man. This was an awesome introductory session and interview. If they want to find out more about you, Armin, how do they find out more about you?
Follow the nudges.
Follow the nudges straight. Armin's profile.
That's it. Follow the nudges, man.
And is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
That's a great question. No, I think whoever came and saw this had to hear exactly what we talked about. Yeah. Stay tuned for more, guys. Andrew's going to be bringing you far more value in this group.
Yeah. And everything's happening for a reason. So if you're watching this right now, it's for a reason. So Armin, thank you so much, brother. And we'll see you guys later.